Of our first semifinal matchup at the EG Masters Cup. Thanks for joining us here this Sunday for some StarCraft 2 action. Both players are in the game. Delta Quadrant will be the map, and Stalife has the opportunity to not only land himself a spot in the finals, but also a potential opportunity to best EG Idra in a notebook battle for that MSI GT660 Notebook. Are the players ready?
Well, interestingly enough, Stalife is requesting about 30 seconds to warm his hands up because he says he's extremely nervous. And this is a little concerning considering the winner will have to go against either Root Slush or Root QXC.
I know.
And those are players who don't really get very nervous, who really are designed to kill things.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a little intimidating.
Exactly. So we've got this semifinal, of course, the semifinal between QXC and Slush, third, fourth place match, the finals match, and then the notebook battle, all best of fives. Idra will be playing from Korea, currently still out there for his other Korean activities as far as StarCraft 2 is going. And, you know, I think that if we just say that Stalife picks this one up, either QXC or Slush, I think just based off of the tempo in which he's playing versus Blur, might be a lot different. A lot different.
Yeah, definitely. Looks like Blur is ready to go. Stalife still continuing to warm his hands up. I'm a little torn on what Blur's optimal way to play is. In his series against Zhou, he had just such tactical brilliance with all those early pushes that your gut wants to say, do more of that, Blur. But as we've seen, Stalife is playing much more safely, building a bunker almost every time to hold that ramp. So it looks like both players are ready. Stalife feeling comfortable with his hands. Blur says, go, go, gadget flow. Always good to call on the gadgetry gods.
That's right.
I tend to call on kangaroos. Good luck, kangaroo luck.
Good luck, Kangaroos. We are loading into Delta Quadrant now. Again, thanks for joining us here. Excited to see who is going to be the first player to land themselves in the final. And as we get started here on Delta Quadrant, it is a TVT. We've got 3 Terran and 1 Zerg left in the competition. What will the finals be? We're going to be finding out real soon.
And it looks like in the top right corner we have Blur as the red Terran. In the bottom right we have Stalife in the bottom right as the blue Terran. Now notice in these positions, pretty close by ground, and in the bottom right, it does mean that Stalife, whenever he chooses to push or do any aggression with Banshees, he will fly over this back door expansion right here. Very easy for Banshees to harass there, and there's a little cliff right here where the tanks can also be aggressive. However, at the same time, Banshees from Red's base have all this empty space over here, so it's a little easier to harass with Banshees for Blur, a little easier to do drops for Stalife.
There was a little bit of banter in the beginning of the matchup, but both players seeming pretty comfortable here in this match. One thing I did want to note is that as we had talked about it, in the last matchup, we actually saw Blur have the safe position where he was here and his opponent was over on the other side. But in this particular case, it is going to be Stalife with the advantage. So curious how it'll work out for him. Stalife, as you said, playing that safe game with that early scout as usual. He really likes to get in there and get an early look at what his opponent's doing. He is going to harass SCV with this first scouting SCV. Sees pretty much what he expects to see.
Indeed, there is the barracks going down after these, before the refinery, so both players doing approximately identical plays. Stalife seems to be a little bit ahead on the SCV count, but it looks like Blur is getting his orbital command earlier. Oh no, did I actually get that backwards? It looks like Stalife actually running a little bit behind on, wow, everything. So some sort of optimization that Blur did with his workers early worked out just niftily, so he is now continuing to make Marines, heading them towards the ramp. We haven't seen any sort of add-on go down. Looks like Blur is deciding to go back to standard play.
We do see second gas coming out for Stalife here, and good indication that we could see some Banshees, and he's definitely in a location too as well. Blur was in the mineral line when that second gas went down, so he has a good idea, a lot of good intel coming out from there. Meanwhile, it's going to be working his way over. Blur might lose that SCV at the tower. Got to be careful. We do have a couple Marines coming out here as well, and Factory just now going down for Blur.
Now this is a cool style of play that Phoenix was the first player I saw do this, where you open up with a very fast Reaper, and then you go for the usual factory and for the starport with the Banshee play, but because you open Reaper, you control the map a lot better. You're guaranteed to get these watchtowers. A Reaper does kill a Hellion, so you can pull that off. You get one really fast Marauder at the front, just in case some sort of funky mech push comes, but other than that, you get 2 gas geysers very, very quickly, so you can get both the tanks and the Banshees out pretty fast.
Blur is coming forward with 3 Marines and an SCV, and there is only a single Marine out here right now as a Marauder is going ahead and training, and he's going to take down that Marine with ease. Moving into position now. He basically has free reign of this base. We do have the Reaper coming in through the back to try to do something. Marauder is now out, but he might be able to do some damage here. At least the SCV's Marauder might push these guys out, but he certainly put him on guard.
Does look like we're seeing a little bit of a hungry Reaper trying to dart to the front, the exact opposite of what you normally want to see happen in the position of Stalife. Normally you'd want to be the one putting pressure on your opponent, but as we see, Blur saw that tech lab, knew the timing of when the Reaper would be gone, and just pressed everything into that right off the bat. Is he getting fast siege? Oh my goodness, Blur is going for a fast siege tank with siege mode push.
I really like this. I think it's super effective on this map. Here we got the Reaper coming up here, gonna travel through the expansion of Blur and get into the back with no problems here. There are a few Marines and a tank back there. No, there was actually really good placement of that one Marine right in between the command center and the refinery, and so that Reaper will be forced to get out of there.
Looks like starport coming down right now for Blur. Pretty typical transitions, but keep in mind that siege mode is almost done for Blur. It looks like he'll be gearing up to do a push very shortly. It would be unwise for him to wait, because in general, why get the fast siege mode if you're not going to use the fast siege mode? And it looks like Blur is gearing up for the move out, and it looks like he has a lot more units than his opponent. 10 Marines and 2 tanks versus 3 Marines and 1 tank, and then a Marauder and a Reaper as well. But Stalife does have this medevac out, and if Stalife decides to push, that could be very, very painful.
Yeah, and you know what? That siege tank is just now finishing siege mode for Stalife. He is going to move it back just a little bit, and even if he moves back here, these units are definitely going to get taken out. He is going to go ahead and siege up. Oh, wow, losing that first tank. Another tank comes out, and what great timing for the siege of Stalife. Going to load up that medevac and counterattack while these units are returning back to base.
Look at this great placement by Stalife. Right at the ramp is when the first shots go off, right when the units are most clustered. This counterattack definitely going to be running into a huge swell of units there. They're going to try to sneak around to the backside, and they're going to get completely surrounded. Needs to be careful, and whoa! Escapes that medevac with almost no hits on it, but still, a good attempt by Stalife.
Now, obviously, that early tank push was intended to try to get in there, possibly in the game. So if you're Blur right now, do you just keep up your tank production? It looks like he is going to expand off of that, continuing the Marine production. But what are you thinking here?
Really, I think that Blur is in still absolutely fine shape. I would have loved it if he did something more than lose that tank, but he still ended up with quite a little bit of an early lead with that push, and you can even see that food-wise, Blur is pulling rapidly ahead. He's trying to poke around with his Viking, and it looks like Blur is going to be relying on the most ultra-standard of standards, Marine, tank, Viking, and oh no! It looks like Stalife gets the siege advantage again, but Stalife is way lower on units. His siege tanks are better positioned, though. But man, Stalife really doing a good job evening that up. This Viking could begin taking out that medevac if it wanted to.
So he's going to go ahead and decide to retreat out of there. Viking might chase after that medevac. Looks like he is going to land.
All right,
that was interesting. But now he is going to move on a possible counterattack. Now, there are some tanks back here. They are not sieged, not really ready up, but he might choose to siege up here at his choke. So this seems like it could be a really fragile time here for Stalife, as he does have more tanks than his opponent. But no, Blur is going to do the wise thing. Go ahead and expand behind that attack. He's got some nice siege tanks out here. And there's a cloaked Banshee moving in here, forcing a scan, and will not get it before it moves out of scan range.
Oh, and it's going to be able to pick off a tank. Really painful loss right there. He's going to try to land and scan right away, and he gets the Banshee, but loses the tank just inches away. Stalife now trying to move forward, going to try to siege these tanks up in a useful spot, but still has to be very careful, as there are a lot of Marines out on the field.
He's going to ferry the one tank up to the side. That's really great because you've got to have some sort of air unit to come in there, or you've got to drop. This will render this expansion pretty unusable here, as we're going to continue just sieging the workers and the orbital command of this expansion. Very nice move.
And there's the lift right now. It does look like we have turrets being thrown down in the base of Blur. 3 very wide spread out turrets. Still a spot for a Banshee to be able to hide right on in there. There's another Banshee harassing. Does he have enough for a scan? On this one he does, but it is not landed. So that means that this one does have free reign. Will he be able to get the scan off? There is a scan going down, and he picks off another Banshee. So those last Banshees haven't been as successful as he would like, but still, Blur's going to need to get Banshees of his own out if he wants to be able to break this tank contain.
The tank numbers are pretty even, but Blur is behind by a couple. He does have a few in production here. It's these tanks. Oh, he's actually moved those tanks out of that little choke that was sitting there. Only kept the one up on the hill. Looks like he's going to go after the rocks for the gold and get ready to drop this orbital command here. Meanwhile, it looks like the gold is also the route for Stalife, as he is going to move into that position too, but he has his natural up and very healthy right now.
We see Stim and a lot of Marines churning out for Stalife. For Blur, though, barely has 2 barracks up and running. There is the Raven out, which is kind of nice, but there's not as many Banshees out right now. Stalife actually just has this one tank still just hanging out from behind. Doesn't look like there are any Vikings for Stalife, just going Banshees, tanks, and Marines, the standard mix in this matchup. And Stalife is gearing forward for a very big push.
Yeah, right in the midst of an expansion too. You know, this is going to be pretty devastating. You can see there that the tank is still up on the side. Did he try to drop in the back? No, he didn't.
Looks like Stalife moving forward a little bit too aggressively. His tanks are able to take out the opponents. So that was a very nice move there. So it's only 2 tanks remaining for Blur. He needs to get some sort of power unit out if he wants to be able to snap this push off.
Yeah, and it's going to be rough. He does have really nice gold running right now with a lot of mules on there as well, so he can't keep up with this production. And Stalife is actually going to very smartly move out of there. Oh, that's a Marauder that I kept on seeing this blue thing over here, and I'm like, what the hell? There's just this one Marauder who just continues to check for that expansion. He doesn't know that he's got the gold right now.
I mean, Stalife has to be suspecting something at this point. Blur's no pushover. He's not just going to suddenly, oh, well, you know, you got my base. I guess I'll just not make another base. It's fine. So he's just continuing to make medevacs now. Tanks getting a lot more depots up. How are those upgrades looking on the Marines? Ouch! Hasn't even started them yet. And that's going to be a lot of pain because Stalife is moving over towards the gold expansion. There's the cloaked Banshee. It gets taken down almost immediately, but the siege tanks are still inches away from shooting that command center. You got to be so careful if you are in Blur's spot. It looks like Stalife is going to try to advance forward and break this one tank. He is doing a successful job, and look, there's the advance forward. Stalife does have stim, has not done it yet. There's the huge stim getting thrown down. Will Blur be able to hold this off? Great micro right there by Stalife, but it looks like Blur might be able to take it out. No! Stalife has too many Marines, too many tanks, and there's the good game. Stalife advances to the finals, much to his disbelief.
Yeah, Blur played okay. I think he played his. I think his other games in this competition were much better. Today, not his day. Stalife really just playing very standard, very meticulous, no mistakes. I think was ultimately the key there.
Absolutely.
The one moment where I felt like Blur had the early timing push on the on Scrap Station was just thwarted so nicely by Stalife with his decision on what to go, and it just didn't work out for him today.
Yeah, you know, that I think that one game on Scrap Station was really a heartbreaker for Blur, who has you know, had a lot of success with that build in this tournament. Specifically, the game against Zhou just did an amazing, cool game. with that bus, but it literally got completely denied. Didn't even get the chance to happen ever, and it looks like Slush will be against QXC coming up on our next semifinal match. There is our current look at the brackets. NOVA Stalife in the finals will be against the winner of Root QXC against Slush that we will be going into quite shortly.
Yes, we are going to be taking a quick break, and when we come back, QXC will play his third series of the day, of course, versus Slush, who brought all